Chapter 1: The Flickering of Stars. The night had fallen like a blanket of velvet, thick and suffocating. In the stillness, the only sound was the soft rustling of leaves swaying in the wind. The moon, hidden behind a veil of clouds, was only a faint shadow, a whisper of light in the vastness of the sky. A world so dark, yet teeming with life. The soft glow of fireflies began to flicker, weaving through the air like living stars, their dance painting the night with delicate luminescence. Mia sat by the edge of the forest, her small hands gripping the rough bark of the tree, her eyes wide with wonder. Her world had been so small, so confined. But now, here, she was surrounded by a sea of darkness, illuminated only by the gentle glow of the fireflies. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not at this hour. Her father would be furious, but Mia didn't care. The world inside the walls of their house felt like a prison to her, cold, empty, filled with reminders of what once was. The war had changed everything. She remembered the day it all started, the way her life had shifted in an instant. That morning, the sky had been brighter than it had ever been, with birds singing their melodies and the world filled with promises of tomorrow. But by the afternoon, everything had collapsed. Her home, her family, her future, shattered in the blink of an eye. Mia's father had always been the pillar of their family, stoic and strong. But when the soldiers came, everything changed. His eyes, once filled with fire, were now empty, distant. He no longer laughed. He no longer smiled. And the warmth that had once filled their home had disappeared, replaced by a cold silence that echoed through every room. Her mother, Mia's light, her heart, hadn't been the same since that day. The war had taken her too, in a way. It wasn't the bombs or the guns that had killed her. It was the fear, the uncertainty. The slow crumbling of the world she had once known. Her mother had grown thin, fragile, like a bird that had been caught in a storm. Her smile, once so bright, had faded, replaced by a haunted look in her eyes. It was as if the light inside her had been slowly extinguished, bit by bit. The fireflies were her only comfort now. They reminded her of the days before, of simpler times when life had been beautiful, when there had been no war, no suffering. The way they glowed, so effortlessly, so freely, made her forget the weight of the world on her shoulders. But Mia knew that this quiet peace wouldn't last. There was always a looming threat, always something just beyond the horizon. She had learned that the hard way. The forest was a place of fleeting beauty, but it was also a place of danger. The whispers of the wind carried stories of soldiers who roamed these lands, of families that had been torn apart, of villages that had vanished without a trace. Yet, for tonight, Mia allowed herself to forget. She closed her eyes, listening to the rhythm of the fireflies' dance, and for a brief moment, she felt free. Her peace was short-lived. A sudden rustling of leaves snapped her out of her trance. Her heart raced. She had heard that sound before, the sound of footsteps. Mia quickly scrambled to her feet, her pulse quickening. Her gaze darted around, but the darkness made it impossible to see anything clearly. She could barely make out the outline of the trees, their twisted forms reaching up like ghostly fingers. She wasn't alone. The rustling grew louder, closer. Mia's breath hitched. She couldn't stay here, exposed, vulnerable. Her father had always warned her about the dangers of the forest at night, but she hadn't listened. She never listened. Panic gripped her chest as she turned to run, but before she could take a step, a figure emerged from the shadows. A tall man, dressed in the tattered remnants of a soldier's uniform, his face hidden beneath the hood of his cloak. His eyes glowed faintly in the dark, an unsettling shade of green, like the last embers of a dying fire. Mia froze, her body stiff with fear. She knew who he was, even before he spoke. "The forest is not a place for children," the man said, his voice low and rasping, like the wind through dry leaves. Mia took a step back, her mind racing. She wanted to run, to scream, but her legs felt like stone. She had heard the stories of the soldiers who came at night, who took what they wanted and left nothing behind. "You shouldn't be here," the man repeated, his gaze fixed on her. There was something haunting in his eyes, something that made Mia's heart twist with fear. I was just..." Mia stammered, her voice trembling. She didn't know how to explain herself. How could she? She had no reason to be here, no excuse for wandering into the forest at this hour. But the fireflies had called to her, their soft glow offering her an escape from the darkness that had consumed her life. "You're lost," the man said, his tone softening ever so slightly. "But you're not the first." Mia didn't understand what he meant. She wanted to ask, to demand answers, but the words died in her throat. She could feel the weight of the man's gaze, the way he was studying her, like she was something both familiar and foreign. "Come with me," he said, his voice quieter now, almost gentle. "You don't belong here alone." Against her better judgment, Mia found herself nodding, her feet moving before her mind could catch up. She had no idea who this man was, or what he wanted, but the darkness seemed less threatening with him there. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You'll see soon enough," the man replied, turning toward the trees. "Follow me." Mia hesitated for a moment, looking back at the fireflies, their light still flickering in the distance. But she knew she couldn't stay here. She had no choice but to follow. As they walked deeper into the forest, the silence between them grew. Mia's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, of questions that she couldn't answer. She didn't know what to expect, but she felt a strange sense of unease, as if the forest itself was alive, watching, waiting. And then, just as the night seemed to close in around them, the man stopped. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "This is where you'll stay," he said, gesturing toward a small clearing ahead. In the center of the clearing was a small hut, its walls made of stone, its roof covered in moss. The faintest light flickered from within, like a candle struggling to stay lit in the wind. Mia's heart raced. This was not what she had expected. The man's presence had been unsettling enough, but now, standing in front of this strange little hut, she felt the weight of something much heavier pressing down on her. The man took a step closer, his eyes softening for the first time. "This place will keep you safe," he said. "For a while, at least." Mia swallowed hard, trying to steady her breath. "Who are you?" she asked, the question slipping from her lips before she could stop it. The man's eyes gleamed for a moment, a flicker of something that might have been amusement, or perhaps pity. "I'm just someone who's seen too much of the world," he said, his voice distant. "But you, Mia, you haven't seen anything yet." And with that, he turned, disappearing into the shadows of the forest once more. Mia stood alone in the clearing, her mind spinning with questions, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no idea what she was about to face, but she knew one thing for sure: this was only the beginning. Chapter 2: The Hollow Path. Mia stood at the edge of the clearing, staring after the man who had led her here. His figure had vanished into the night as silently as it had appeared. The darkness of the forest seemed to press in around her, swallowing the small light that flickered from the stone hut. She felt a chill run through her, but it wasn't just the cold of the night air, it was something deeper, something that gnawed at her from within. Was she making a mistake? The questions buzzed in her head, but there was no time to answer them. The man had spoken of safety, of refuge, but what kind of safety could she find in the heart of the forest, in the company of a stranger whose face she couldn't even remember clearly? What did he mean by, "You haven't seen anything yet"? Mia shook her head and pulled her coat tighter around herself. She had no other choice. The war had taken everything from her, her family, her home, her innocence, and she had nowhere else to turn. This strange man, this hut, perhaps they were the only lifeline she had left. She had to trust that she would find something here. Maybe she would finally find answers. Maybe she would find herself. With a deep breath, she walked toward the hut, each step quiet but purposeful. The air felt different here, still and heavy, as if the world itself was holding its breath. When she reached the door, she paused, her hand hovering over the handle. For a moment, she hesitated, but then, without another thought, she pushed the door open. The inside was dimly lit, with the faint glow of a fire flickering in the hearth. The room was small, sparse, but somehow inviting. There was a sense of calm here, a stark contrast to the turmoil outside. A single wooden table sat in the center, surrounded by a few mismatched chairs. On the walls were shelves filled with various trinkets, old books, odd stones, and strange artifacts that Mia couldn't even begin to name. A figure was seated by the fire, a woman. Her face was shadowed by the glow of the flames, but Mia could make out her silhouette, a tall, slender figure with long hair that cascaded down her back like a waterfall of shadows. The woman didn't look up as Mia entered, but the air shifted, a quiet presence that seemed to acknowledge her arrival. "Come in," the woman said softly, her voice low and smooth, like the rustling of leaves in the wind. Mia stepped inside, her eyes scanning. But what? What was the truth? What was happening to her world? Chapter 3, The Beginning of the End. Mia stood frozen in the room, her heart still racing, her mind spinning with questions she couldn't answer. The man, who had been so unsettling, so mysterious, had disappeared into the night, leaving a trail of unease behind him. Maris had not moved since he left, her gaze fixed on the door, as though she were expecting something, or perhaps dreading it. The fire crackled in the hearth, its warmth doing little to ease the chill that had settled over Mia. She didn't understand any of this. The war had already shattered her world, how could there be something more, something worse? Her head swirled with confusion, but the only thing she knew for sure was that she was trapped in a web of something much bigger than herself. "Maris," Mia said, her voice tentative. "What's going on? What is all of this? What did that man mean when he said the war was just the beginning?" Maris turned slowly, her sharp eyes meeting Mia's with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. "You have much to learn, Mia," she said, her voice softer now, almost pitying. "More than I can teach you in a single night. But for now, you need to know that your world is not what it seems. The war you've witnessed is a fraction of the true conflict, a conflict that has been brewing for centuries. It's not just nations against nations, or soldiers against civilians. It's something much deeper." Mia's brow furrowed. "What do you mean? Is this supernatural?" Maris nodded slowly, her face unreadable. "Yes. There are forces at work in the world that most people never see. Forces that have shaped history, manipulated events, and pushed humanity toward its darkest moments. These forces, ancient, powerful, and unseen, have been gathering, and they are preparing for something that will change everything." Mia felt her stomach tighten. "What does that have to do with me?" "You are the key," Maris said simply, as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. "The war you've experienced, the losses you've suffered, they were only the beginning. You've been caught in the crossfire of something much larger, Mia. And now, it's time for you to take your place." Mia recoiled slightly, her breath catching in her throat. "Take my place in what?" Maris didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked over to a small table by the fire, where a worn, leather-bound book lay. She opened it carefully, revealing pages filled with strange symbols and writing, none of which Mia could decipher. Maris flipped through the pages until she came to one that was marked with a crimson-red stain. "This is the Codex," Maris said, her voice almost reverent. "A record of the ancient knowledge, passed down through the ages. It contains the secrets of the forces that are pulling the strings of the world, the beings that have shaped the fate of humanity. And it contains the prophecy that speaks of a child who will stand at the crossroads of destiny." Mia stared at the book, her heart pounding. "Prophecy? What child? What does this have to do with me?" Maris turned the page slowly, revealing a faded illustration of a figure, an ethereal being, with eyes that seemed to glow in the dark, their features both familiar and foreign at the same time. The figure was standing in the middle of a battlefield, surrounded by destruction, holding something in their hands, a glowing orb, pulsing with light. "You, Mia," Maris said, her voice low and heavy with meaning. "You are the child of the prophecy." Mia's world seemed to tilt, her body swaying as she tried to process the words. "No," she whispered. "That's impossible. I'm just a girl. I don't even know what's happening around me." Maris closed the book with a soft thud, her eyes never leaving Mia's. "It's true. You were born into this. You may not understand it now, but everything you've experienced, everything you've gone through, has been a preparation for what's to come." Mia shook her head, her mind rebelling against the truth that was being forced upon her. "I don't want this," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted to survive." "I know," Maris said gently, her gaze softening for a moment. "No one ever asks for this kind of fate. But it's yours now, Mia. You have a choice to make." Mia looked at the fire, the flickering flames reflecting the turmoil inside her. She had no answers. She had no understanding of what Maris was saying, of what the prophecy meant, or how she was supposed to fit into it all. All she knew was the pain, the unbearable ache of loss, of uncertainty. She had already lost so much. How could she bear the weight of this as well? Before she could speak again, there was another sound, this time, a soft thud at the door. Mia's heart skipped a beat. This time, she didn't need to be told. She knew it was him, the man who had disappeared earlier. Mia shook her head, disbelief flooding her. "No, I don't have any power. I'm just a survivor. I've done nothing but survive." "You've done more than survive," the man interjected, his tone sharper now. "You've endured. That's what sets you apart. You've walked through the fire and come out the other side. And now, you must walk through it again." Mia felt a chill run through her. "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What do I have to do?" Maris stepped forward, her face determined. "The time for hiding is over. The world is changing, and you must change with it. You cannot keep running from your destiny." The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows across the room. Mia looked at the flames, her heart pounding as a sense of dread settled over her. This was it, the moment when her world would either crumble or shift into something unrecognizable. She could feel it in the air, the heavy weight of inevitability. Whatever was about to unfold, she could not stop it. "How do we begin?" Mia asked, her voice steady now, though a storm of fear churned inside her. The man's eyes glinted with something like approval. "We begin by going to the place where it all began. To the heart of the conflict. To the place where the Codex was born, where the prophecy was written. It is there that you will learn what you need to know. It is there that your journey truly starts." Maris nodded, a look of resolve in her eyes. "The journey will not be easy, Mia. There will be tests, trials, and enemies who will stop at nothing to prevent you from fulfilling your role. But we will be with you. Every step of the way." Mia swallowed, feeling a strange sense of determination rise within her. She didn't know what she was about to face, but she couldn't turn away. Not now. She had already lost so much, and she wasn't about to lose her chance to fight for something that could change everything. "Where is this place?" she asked. The man turned to her, his eyes hardening. "It's hidden. Not in any map or known location. It is a place that exists outside of time, a place between worlds. We will need to travel through paths that few know exist. But it's the only way." Without waiting for any further questions, the man turned on his heel and strode toward the door. "We leave at dawn. Prepare yourself." Mia stood there for a moment, her thoughts racing. The prophecy. The power. The battle. It all felt so overwhelming, like a puzzle with pieces she could not see. And yet, deep down, there was a flicker of something within her, a quiet whisper that urged her forward. Maybe she didn't understand everything yet. Maybe she wasn't ready. But one thing was certain, this was her fight now. Maris approached her, her expression unreadable. There is a deeper truth to this world, Mia. You'll discover it soon enough. But remember this, you are not alone. The forces at play may be beyond your understanding, but you have allies. You have us. Mia nodded, though her mind was still clouded with uncertainty. But she couldn't afford to wait any longer. The world was moving too fast, and she had to keep up. As she turned toward the small cot in the corner of the room, she knew sleep would not come easily. But her mind was already racing with questions and thoughts about what lay ahead. She had been thrust into a world she didn't understand, but she couldn't ignore the pull of destiny. The path ahead was unclear, but she would walk it, no matter the cost. The fire in the hearth continued to burn, its flames a quiet reminder that the time was coming. The time for answers, for the truth, was drawing near. And Mia would have to face it all, one step at a time. As she closed her eyes, the soft sound of the wind outside seemed to carry with it the weight of 1,000 unanswered questions. But in her heart, Mia knew that the journey had already begun. And with it, everything was about to change. Chapter 5: The Heart of the Storm. Dawn arrived with a chill that seemed to seep into Mia's very bones. The first rays of light crept through the cracks in the walls, casting long shadows across the room. She had barely slept, her mind a whirlwind of images, words, and emotions she couldn't quite grasp. But now, with the day breaking and the silence of the night slipping away, she knew it was time. She had to leave. Her heart beat fast as she gathered the few belongings she had, a coat, a satchel, and the small journal she'd kept in her pocket for years. Her only reminder of a life before the war, before all of this madness. As she stood up, she glanced around the hut one last time. The strange sense of comfort it had given her the night before had faded, replaced by an uneasy tension. The world outside was waiting for her. The door creaked open, and the man stood there, his face set in grim determination. His eyes flickered over her, noting that she had packed and was ready to leave. Without a word, he stepped aside, motioning for her to follow. Mia hesitated but then walked past him, stepping into the cold morning air. The forest, which had seemed so mysterious and magical the night before, now felt darker, more foreboding. The trees were tall and imposing, their branches twisted like skeletal hands reaching for the sky. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and moss, but underneath it all, there was a heavy silence that pressed down on her. Maris was already waiting for them, standing at the edge of the forest, her figure barely visible in the dim light. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes betrayed a deep well of emotion, concern, fear, perhaps even sorrow. She didn't speak as they approached, but her gaze met Mia's for a brief moment, and Mia could sense a shared understanding between them. "You're ready," Maris said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of a decision made long ago. Mia nodded, though the uncertainty still gnawed at her insides. "Where are we going?" The man stepped forward, his hand resting on a worn, wooden staff. "We are going to the place where the prophecy began," he said, his voice low but full of authority. "A place hidden from time. A place where the path to your destiny begins to reveal itself." Mia swallowed hard. "And what is that path? What do I have to do?" The man's lips curled into a thin, hard smile. "You will learn soon enough." With that, the trio moved forward, into the heart of the forest. The air seemed to grow thicker with every step, and Mia couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking deeper into a realm that was not entirely of this world. The trees grew closer together, their twisted branches forming an almost impenetrable canopy overhead. The sunlight barely filtered through, casting everything in an eerie twilight. They walked in silence for what felt like hours, the only sounds being the crunch of the forest floor beneath their feet and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. Mia's thoughts were a jumble of confusion and fear. She had no idea what was waiting for her, or what it meant to be the child of the prophecy. But there was something inside her, a small flicker of fire, that told her she couldn't turn back now. Finally, they reached a clearing. In the center stood a massive stone structure, ancient and weathered by time. It was unlike anything Mia had ever seen, a tower of sorts, but twisted, as though the stones had been shaped by something other than human hands. The air around it felt charged, as if the very earth beneath her feet was alive. "This is the place," the man said, his voice reverberating in the stillness. "Where the prophecy was first spoken. Where the path begins." Mia stepped forward, drawn by an invisible force. Her breath caught in her throat as she reached out to touch one of the stones. It was cold to the touch, but something pulsed beneath the surface, a subtle energy, like a heartbeat. "What is this place?" she whispered. "It's the heart of everything," Mara said, her voice heavy with reverence. "The beginning and the end. The place where the balance was once forged, and the place where it will either be restored or destroyed." The man stepped forward, his hand brushing against the stones as he murmured something under his breath. The ground trembled slightly, and for a brief moment, Mia felt as though the world itself was holding its breath. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, the man stepped aside, revealing a narrow opening in the stone. "Inside is where your journey truly begins," he said. Mia stood frozen, her mind racing. Inside? What awaited her there? She felt an overwhelming sense of foreboding, but also a strange pull, a call she couldn't ignore. She knew that once she entered, there would be no turning back. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, her hand brushing the cool stone as she passed through the narrow opening. On the other side, a dark passage stretched before her, winding deeper into the earth. "This is it," Maris said softly from behind her. "You are about to enter a world that has been hidden from humanity for centuries. The truth will be revealed, Mia, but be prepared. It will not be easy." Mia nodded, though her heart was racing. She didn't know what awaited her in the depths of the stone structure, but she knew that the truth was something she had to face. There was no other choice. As they ventured further into the passage, the air grew colder. The walls of the tunnel were lined with strange carvings, symbols that Mia couldn't read but felt she recognized deep within herself. They glowed faintly, casting an eerie light on the path ahead. The further they walked, the more the air seemed to hum with energy, as though the very fabric of the world around them was shifting. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a vast chamber. In the center of the room was an altar, ancient and worn, but still standing strong. Surrounding it were more carvings, intricate and detailed, telling a story that Mia couldn't understand. But one symbol stood out among them all, a symbol that was familiar, though Mia had never seen it before. It was the same symbol that had been etched into the pages of the Codex, the same symbol that had been on the illustration of the prophecy. Mia stepped closer, her heart pounding in her chest. "What is this place?" she asked again, her voice trembling. "This is the birthplace of your destiny," the man said, his voice low. "The place where the power resides. The power that you must learn to control if you are to fulfill your role." Mia turned to him, her eyes wide. "And how do I do that? How do I control it?" He met her gaze with cold, unwavering eyes. "You must face the trials. Only then will you understand the full extent of your power. But remember, if you fail, the balance will be lost. And the consequences will be catastrophic." Mia took a deep breath, steeling herself. She had no idea what was coming, but she knew one thing for sure: she couldn't turn back. She was the child of the prophecy, and the world was waiting for her to decide its fate. With one final glance at Maris and the man, Mia stepped forward, ready to face whatever trials lay ahead. The time had come. The journey was about to begin in earnest. And she was no longer just a survivor. She was the one who would decide the world's future. The end.